Welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. We're starting things out looking at Stereo A's coronagraph. And for your new viewers, Stereo A is located right there at Lagrange point 5. That's the location of Stereo A, so you're looking in this direction. And coronal mass ejections showing up in this direction could be directed toward Earth, right? Anyway, there's a coronal mass ejection. Let's analyze it and see if it is indeed directed toward Earth. It's not. This one is expected to miss to the west. The west is out this way, and the east is out this way. That's because solar weather propagates in the east, and it sets in the west. It rises in the east, and it sets in the west. So there's the view from the LASCO C3, which is located here at Lagrange point 1. And here's the LASCO C2, a zoomed in view of the same area. And since we don't see any ejecta on this side of the coronagraph, and it all appears to be on this side of the coronagraph, it appears to be non-Earth facing. Let's move to the SDO, if you're wondering where that's located. It flies in a figure-8 shaped orbit in that area. And here are some custom movies. And we see that coronal mass ejection in 304 angstroms propagates from around this area right here. The coronal mass ejection happened at around 1600 hours. Around 1300 hours on the 16th. And right there you can see that plasma blasting off right out of this region right here. I'll rock that back again so you can see it. Right there, you can see the coronal mass ejection. We don't always cover it exactly where it comes from, but today was a good opportunity to do so. Here's a colorized magnetogram, and by the way, if you're looking for sunspots, the colorized magnetogram is the easiest way to determine if there are indeed sunspots. And we don't see any. We don't see any areas of extreme magnetic organization here. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux has gone back up to 70, and it's a welcome sight seeing a smoothed monthly value of 71.7 for the month of August. The last time we got over 80 was all the way back in September of 2017 with a monthly value of 95.5. So the radial flux is a measurement of radial output from the solar outer corona, and it's a good proxy for sunspot number. One of the things we follow, especially at time of solar minimum. The KP index is currently at 1. That's a measurement of global geomagnetism. We don't see any solar flares. We don't see any major proton strikes. Let's take a look at the live stream to make sure that it is legit. Next, looking at real-time solar wind to see a recently dropping solar wind density down to 4.6 protons per cubic centimeter, having reached a peak of 11.2, and that looks like the beginning of a coronal hole wind stream. Once again, folks, you see the density drop off and the velocity come up soon afterwards. Looks like a weak diffuse coronal hole wind stream. No surprise there, as we've seen some weak diffuse coronal holes. So that's sounds about right to me. Current solar wind speed all the way down at 308 kilometers per second. Looks like that coronal hole wind stream was short-lived and perhaps has already subsided. Expect to see this drop even lower. Next, looking at the magnetosphere here, it's 4 hours of data according to the space weather modeling framework. And we see very large plasma spheres here. You can see all this empty space out here. That is where the plasma collects, being trapped there by the Van Allen belts. Giant electronic belts emanating from the poles and circling the planet depending on the position of the sun. Next, ground magnetic perturbations. Here's 4 hours a little closer to home. Give that a moment to load. And it's not going to load. It's the dangers of streaming live, folks. Let's try to refresh. And I think we've salvaged that. Let's see what's going on planet Earth during this magnetic excursion. And we do see evidence of the South Geomagnetic Pole being in the southern Indian Ocean there, as well as evidence of 2 North Poles, one over Siberia and one over northern Canada. Were you aware? Anyway, that's what's going on in terms of changes to the Earth's B field on ground level. We've got a bunch of power outages here in Florida, Alabama, and Louisiana. Also Georgia showing 22,000 out. Over 200,000 out in Florida. Nearly 300,000 out of power in Alabama. 53,000 out in Louisiana, and still nearly 15,000 out of power in California. Let's talk about magnetism. Now, the GOES magnetometer measures magnetism around the ionosphere layer, and we see some very weak readings down here. And I believe this is actually a heliospheric current sheet polarity crossing. We'll show you on the next slide. So you can see the top view ecliptic plane field plot here. It shows you potential field force lines from Earth, and there are 52 ground-based magnetometers there from stereo A. Magnetometers on stereo A and stereo B, which is located there at Lagrange point 4. I believe we're already in the South Pole current sheet. The data is 1 hour and 55 minutes old, and you can see the last field force line here associated with this small red South Polar current sheet. I believe we've probably already snapped across into the green North Pole current sheet. Here's the line of sight field plot, which shows you the B field in blue. No big changes going on in the B field right now. Let me check the life of the stream. Did I completely fail to show things? All right. Son of a... All right. Let's just move on. All right, wonderful. And here are the potential field force lines in the corona. It shows you closed field force lines in pink, open field force lines in black, and coronal hole potential field force lines in purple. And welcome to a Smash Lights. This one's going to be pretty short. Now, we usually do stream live to Twitch when we do the daily space weather videos. If you want to see them when they come out immediately, perhaps consider following us over at twitch.tv/smashomash. By the way, the Twitch app is great and will send you notifications when we go live. If you're viewing on YouTube, please press like and subscribe over on YouTube. Tell your friends, your foes, your science noobs, and your science pros. Let's give you some insight into what's going on. Here's some of my subscriptions. And here's a great image, a great movie here from some Russian channel that I don't know how to pronounce. A great composite there of the coronal mass ejection, the one that we've been covering. And we saw it propagating yesterday. That's part of the reason why we started talking about it. We're also on BitChute, and there is exclusive content over there, such as our video about hydroxychloroquine, which we put out on March 19th. Let's talk about COVID. I'm scared and spooked. Are you scared and spooked? Oh my God, it's so scary and spooky. So scary and spooky that I'm gonna... That's what my immune system thinks of COVID. It's a cheap Chinese China virus, a China virus made in China. Chinese China virus. It's Chinese and cheap. Cheap and Chinese. Let's talk about Scientific American, who's destroyed their credibility for a long, long time. Now telling you to go vote for Biden because the world could end. 2020, the year of clarity, where every COVIDiot in the world jumps up and down and says, "Look at me, I'm a COVIDiot." By the way, are you still scared and spooked? America's oldest World War II veteran has just celebrated his 111th birthday. Hey, COVIDiots, he's survived 2 global pandemics. Are you still scared? And also, shout out to the Washington football team. This is from our Instagram page, by the way, instagram.com/smashamash. Congratulations, Washington, on changing your football team's name to the Washington Condiments, because ketchup and mustard are not considered racist. Yet. By the way, we're also on Minds. It's minds.com/smashamash. I believe it's the future of social media, as it won't censor and shadow ban and do all kinds of inappropriate things that Facebook likes to do. We do put all of our content up there. Consider it Minds, minds.com/smashamash. Go over there, give us a subscription. Perhaps send us some tokens so that we can boost our posts. And actually, that was the first place that the Washington football team's new logo appeared. Yes. By the way, if you'd like me to do graphic design work for you, hit me up at smashomash@gmail.com. I'll consider giving you a good rate. Have you gotten yourself a souvenir? Have you headed to smashamash.com/forum? Well, if you go to smashamash.org, you'll see all of our social media links there. You'll see me vanish while you watch the videos. Just click on that little arrow up there, and there you go. There's our social media, the smAsho VoIP phone, the email address. Perhaps consider heading to the smAsho store. Have you picked up a souvenir yet? Are you excited about surviving a global pandemic? Well, I'm excited, and I've survived one so far. And check it out, I'm wearing the Smasher Price My First Pandemic, a shirt which is an homage to the pathetic, ineffective, ridiculous, infantile response of mankind. We've got it in colors, too. You can get it in pink, lime green. Oh, check it out. They're offering me discounts. How about a blaze orange Smasher Price My First Pandemic shirt? So you can go hunting and tell your hunting buddies about what a pathetic and infantile response mankind has had to COVID, trying to mask the world. What a joke. Let's talk about what we were saying on smashamash.com/forum regarding coronavirus on April 25th. Now, law enforcement personnel swear an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution in addition to their local statutes, so hold them accountable if they break the oath. Fortunately, there was some good news on April 25th. A handful of cops were standing up to the tyranny along with the people, refusing to enforce certain types of mask and lockdown mandates. Thank goodness for the police, who obey the oath that they take to uphold the U.S. Constitution. In fact, a salute to all government officials who actually try to uphold the Constitution and follow their oath. More about this later. Let's talk cosmology for a quick moment, as there are certainly some discrepancies in the world of cosmology having to do with stars. So let's go down another rabbit hole and talk about cosmology, which is, by the way, the study of the origin and structure of things in the universe at various scales. It could be intergalactic chemistry. It could be the relationship between galaxies. It could be poloidal fields of stars. It could be even the way stars and planets form, right? Because cosmology is sort of the basis for a lot of things, including even geology. Let's talk about the Cosmology Forum at smashamash.com/forum. By the way, it's a delight. If you head to smashamash.com/forum, you'll see a bunch of threads there. And the first one we have is the Cosmology Forum. So I considered getting a degree in stellar cosmology. However, a 4-year degree would have allowed me to calculate the redshift of Cepheid variables for a dozen years. And I could have worked for NASA with a 4-year degree, but I was not interested in calculating the redshift of Cepheid variables. So I decided to get the heck out of there. Let's talk about the fastest neutron star. Were you aware that neutron star RxJ185635-3754 is traveling at a speed of 241,000 plus miles per hour through the Milky Way galaxy? Yeah. Well, there's an article about it. It's at smashamash.com/forum in the Cosmology Forum. Let's talk about discrepancies regarding the way stars evolve and the way planetary systems evolve. How come there's a survivor planet that's 6 times the size of its parent star orbiting its white dwarf, a, quote, dead, end quote, star? How can that be? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Let's zoom in on Sinbad. And you're not going to see very much. Now, I'm not sure if that object there is the star. I think that's a foreground star, and there's actually an object under that crosshair that we can't even see because it's very dim and cold, as white dwarfs are. What's the problem? The problem is this cartoon. Now, we've never seen a star get born or die, but there are silly, insane theories about the way stellar evolution happens, and it all has to do with a nuclear fusion dynamo inside of the star, which fuses hydrogen and helium together, and eventually when the hydrogen fuel runs out, it starts burning only helium, and then it does things like inflate to a red dwarf size. This is the standard cosmology view of things. Let's talk about this cartoon. Jupiter-sized planet found orbiting white dwarf star. Well, why is it relevant? Well, it's relevant for a couple reasons. One, the planet's much bigger than the star. Two, this completely refutes the ideas of what happens to a star in order to become a white dwarf. In order for this system to have behaved the way standard cosmology would believe, the planet would have had to have been at a much greater distance, as the star would have engulfed it. Now, the tidal forces must be really crazy, as this planet orbits this star at a crazy fast period. I believe it's only a day or two for it to orbit. So it's an interesting system, to say the least. And that planet is believed to be 13.8 times as massive as Jupiter, orbiting a star that's, and by the way, let's get to it. So what happens to planets after the parent stars die? Well, we don't know, since we've never seen a star die. But one of the theories is that the sun will blow up to be about the size of Mars's orbit and engulf all the inner planets. Now, I don't believe that stars behave this way, because in order for them to go through all of this stuff, they have to do things like work on themselves and violate laws of thermodynamics, literally the 0th, 1st, and 2nd law of thermodynamics at least. Check it out, what happens to the light curve. The light curve drops down that low because, again, the planet appears to be significantly larger than the star. And here's the scale of where they'd be located, and you can see the planet's 6 times the size of the star. Quite an odd system there, and the planet's actually very cold as well. It appears to be about 63 degrees Fahrenheit on the planet, so perhaps check that out. The system is called, if you want to read about it, it's on SciTech Daily. It's probably all over the Science Wire as well as on NASA's page. That star is called WD 1856 plus 534. Thanks to our subscribe stars and to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content. Please consider becoming a patron if you haven't already done so. It's patreon.com/smashamash. You'll get some perks, like things like ringtones, free music, graphics, etc. You'll also hear things first before everybody else on the internet. Patreon.com/smashamash. Thanks to our patrons. Again, the true source of funding for the content. And here ends another Smash Lights. Let's move back into space data. The electron flux is tanked. It's at very low levels here. We don't see any charging hazards for spacecraft. The relativistic electron forecast is for the electron content to rise a bit, as you can see there. And here is the GOES electron flux the past 3 days. Quite low levels of electron flux. Here is the total electron content forecast, showing you the entire air column up to the thermosphere. This will give you an idea of where GPS errors will be occurring. And next we'll look at just one slice of the atmosphere, just the ionosphere layer. And by the way, it's taken us months and indeed years to get these slides in the order that we have them. We don't do it because we're boring or lazy. We do it in order to facilitate people understanding the physics of what's going on up there. Here's 24 hours of the ionosphere. And it's a little anomalous on the sun side here. You can see it's charging and discharging quite quickly. Getting all the way up to 14 megahertz there, and then dropping all the way back down to 10 megahertz. Here's the latest image. And that's looking fairly normal. And the sun would be located over about this area here at about 8 o'clock universal time. Slightly north of the equator, as it's still summer, although it's getting quite close to the equator, as the equinox is now less than a week away. And happy new moon. Here's where things are in the solar system. There's where things will be in a week. And let me check the live for the stream and to see if there are any chats. Let me bring out the chat box as I have allowed it to close. Please bear with me one moment, folks. Again, we are streaming live. And we don't see any chats, so let's move on to a star chart. If you're up before dawn, you may see Mars and Venus. If you've got a clear sky and a view of the ecliptic, that's where it's located. I like to face mine to the south. It's in-the-sky.org. We saw some deep quakes, not a lot of big quakes. Let's see what's going on. In the past 24 of earthquakes, here is a 5.6. That could be the largest of the past 24. That one coming in at 8:44 Universal Time yesterday. It's a 5.6 near the Loyalty Islands, near Fiji and Tonga, the deep quake capital of the world. The depth is 118 kilometers. And we're just going to scroll up the list. Small deep quake strikes Alaska. It's only a 3.8, but it's at 140 kilometers. Here's a deep quake at Tajikistan, and we've seen quite a few there over the past weeks, months, and years. It's a 4.4 at 113 kilometers depth. Another deep quake at Alaska. Another deep quake at Alaska. They're all at fairly small magnitudes. Here's a deep quake at southern Mexico. It's 5.2 kilometers and 91 kilometers. 5.2 magnitude and 91.3 kilometers depth. There's one out in the Aleutian Islands at depth. It's a 4.2 magnitude at nearly 150 kilometers depth. And let's move on to volcanoes. Semeru on the list, flight level 140, as it's producing a 14,000-foot ash plume. Tucono exploding, flight level 070, 7,000-foot ash plume there. Nevado del Ruiz back on the list, although volcanic ash not observed in satellite imagery. Please do not pole vault the caldera or the caldera at Revenador. Pole vaulting calderas could be unhealthful. Volcanic ash not detected at either spot. Please don't build a campsite on the lower slopes. You could become part of the volcanic slopes in a pyroclastic flow. Weather.gov map showing a bunch of freeze warnings here in the northern parts of the U.S., as well as a large swath of catastrophic flooding. Speaking of catastrophic flooding, Florida, Bellevue has recorded 30 inches of rain. So Sally has battered the Gulf Coast, and there's a whole bunch of flood warnings across the southeast, as you saw. Disaster declaration for Florida has been declared. Some horrendous scenes. It's a little bit too moist along the Gulf Coast. We've got boats on roads. And let's hope for a speedy recovery down there. Tropical Tidbits is showing some more stuff about to happen here in the Gulf. And if that shifts just a little bit farther north, Louisiana and Mississippi could get struck again. Look at that. They're calling for 24 inches of rain. Fortunately, that's all in the Gulf. That's on Tropical Tidbits. That's a total precip forecast. Shout out to our European and African viewers. Here are your water vapor maps. By the way, I read Greece is going to get pummeled by a Medicane, a Mediterranean ultra-powerful low-pressure system. Here are the water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Shout out to our viewers from those locations. And thanks for leaving a comment. Be stoic. And next we're going to look at the water vapor situation for the Americas. Just bear with me a moment while I bring up the animation. As we need 100% quality, because our viewers are 100% quality. And there's the water vapor map for the Americas. Here is the windy.com pressure forecast via the GFS forecast. We'll let this advance into tomorrow. And that persistent low there, southwest of Greenland, is finally starting to break up a little bit. There's where we expect pressure systems to be at 1 p.m. my time tomorrow. And here's lightningmaps.org showing us where the lightning strikes are happening. And I think I see some terrestrial lightning. Not quite. Crotone. Hey, Crotone. There's thunder rolling in. That's in Italy, by the way. I'll bet it's a great spot for seafood. And next we're going to look at the U.S. Doppler radar map here. Just bear with me one moment. I somehow failed to bring that up. I failed. All right, there's the U.S. Doppler radar map showing you that heavy rain in the southern U.S. Currently mainly over Georgia, about to move into South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia. And still some strong storms over the Florida Panhandle, an unwelcome sign. Let's see what's going on in the cloud layer. And even though it's dark, the NASA GOES shortwave radiation map will show us where the clouds are likely to be. As water emits radiation, did you know? Are you a fan of Sky Scholar, Dr. Pierre-Marie Robitaille? Well, if you are, you probably already knew that water emits radiation. And let's check out this massive pressure gradient here between Alabama and that low pressure system. Check it out. And that low has finally stopped rotating. The low pressure is probably right about here. And let's look at jet streams. There's the current jet stream environment for the Western world. And it is quite meridional in nature. It's all over the place. It's bizarre. It's abnormal. Here are the jets of the Eastern world. And look at this kink here over south central Australia. We see a 180-degree turn over a very tight area. And hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for leaving comments. Thanks for sharing on your social media. Thanks for being a friend or a foe. Thanks for flying American Smashways. Please keep your head and arms inside the Smash plane at all times. As we've got a bonus of features. How about the 171 angstroms 48-hour SDO video? How about the intensitygram and the colorized magnetogram to show you how there are 0 sunspots? And there's the intensitygram, no umbre shown on there, and no significant areas of magnetic organization on the magnetogram. Here is the 2-day SDO video in 171 angstroms. Again, if you want to look more closely at that coronal mass ejection, it happened yesterday around 1300 hours. And I don't really see a lot of evidence of that on this video here. So anyway, we are out. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Attempt to understand the physics if you are indeed willing and able. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back.